We have our first speaker up is Alex Garnett. He is a senior curriculum developer at Temporal Technologies. And in a past life, he was the digital archivist. So go ask him about that, but definitely don't ask him about the Mets. I'm a Phillies fan, so who said woo? Woo! But we don't hold it against him, and we can be friends anyway. Take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Jody. All right. Let's go Mets. Thanks, everyone, for being here this morning. I'm going to tell you why Doc's AI tooling is better, and better for us, than you probably think. A little about me first, because this is very relevant to the talk. I'm a former academic librarian. I've got a burning passion to cite sources. Very important for AI. It's in my soul. Former DigitalOcean writer and editor, so I like to give context and give people nice learning journeys. Former Write the Doc speaker, thank you for having me back again. I love this conference. You're all wonderful. And I'm a very emotional man. I'm very prone to emotional outbursts, especially about AI. This will also come up. Okay. I currently work for a company called Temporal. We are hiring a couple of writers very soon, by the way. I don't want to fail to mention that. So if you're looking, come find me or my colleague Brian later on in the week. Temporal is a durable execution platform. What's that mean? It means we help you do a lot of tricky scaling stuff like failover, reliability, replication, rollback for free. We're open source. It's a cool product. Take a look at it later on if you're interested. And I work on Temporal's courses and documentation. So I help to teach the courses, develop the courses, and I get the course content back into the docs. This is one of our 2 Docusaurus sites for our learning content. We've also got one for our doc site, which you'll see in a bit. Okay, current state of AI in docs. It's a bit of an understatement to say we're all being encouraged to use it. We're like so far into the no one ever got fired for buying IBM stage that we're all just being crushed every day by giant mainframes. Like, more IBM, yeah, you like it. It's exhausting. You cannot open LinkedIn without being smothered by like, do this with AI, do that with AI, right? This is exhausting. Even if you're trying to like it, you're exhausted because there's just no end to it. People just really want to see it used more right now. It's very good for small, discrete technical tasks. Nobody would deny that. If you want it to make you a regular expression or convert some markdown tables, do a JSON query string, God forbid a Helm chart, it can do that. That is not contentious. And those of us who know what we're looking at, so much the better, because that way you're not trusting that it works without actually having that context. Most commercial AIs are still very prone to hallucination. It happens to me very often that if a colleague went and got something from ChatGPT or Claude and it's citing some plugin that doesn't exist, and I have to be like, where did this come from? Come on, come on. So this happens, right? We're going to get back to that too. And if you are a writer, this probably gives you, to be fair, mixed to negative feelings. Even if you are trying to have positive feelings, like it's not great, right? It does kind of wear you down, even if you're trying to keep an open mind. I don't know how you all cope with having negative feelings. I get pretentious. Okay, that's right. Yeah. 8:30 a.m., buckle up, here we go. This is a poem by an Irish poet, William Butler Yeats, who lived about 100 years ago. Whether or not you're into modernism, you may recognize some parts of this poem. It's very widely quoted. And I believe he wrote it while his wife was very sick and possibly dying. And the theme of the poem is, there's no way we can possibly go on like this any longer, right? Like, something's got to change. We're all dying. This is horrible. I feel bad. Why will no one acknowledge how disastrous everything feels right now? Sound familiar? And the beginning of the second stanza, surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. Okay. We're all feeling it. Something's got to give. Something's going to break. Woo, apocalyptic. That's right. The reason I said you might recognize this poem, even if you are not a fan of poetry, is because there is a great and durable literary tradition of ripping this poem off. So, for example, you've got Joan Didion. There she is, folks. She had an essay collection, Slouching Towards Bethlehem. Chinua Achebe, landmark work of African literature, Things Fall Apart. We love to rip off Yeats in this room. Yes, we do. So, ready for it? Yeah, there we go. This sensor cannot hold. Okay, you've probably heard that before. Pretty similar to how we're all maybe feeling about AI right now, right? It's very difficult, even if you're highly motivated, to articulate a coherent position between I hate this or you must use it, right? It's the future and you're suffering. Okay, not a great juxtaposition, but it's really, really hard to find that like center track that actually usefully describes your work and what you want to do with it. This was a very kismet photo opportunity I recently had. The photo on the left was taken by me. I was at Google Cloud Next in Vegas last month working a booth, and I saw a guy walking around with this t-shirt on. And then I opened up my phone like 5 minutes later and saw the hat on the right tweeted on Blue Sky. So, you know, like we're all dealing with it. I think there's a center position somewhere in the middle there. It seems to be greenish. You can't really see it. You know, it's obscured by the two competing images. We all have a lot of feelings right now. And again, if you go on LinkedIn for 5 seconds, just an endless stream of like, what am I doing with AI? Why haven't you fired all your writers? The future's going to eat you. And I'm sure all of us on all of our teams are attempting to have these conversations in good faith. We really are. I don't doubt that for a second, and this is not meant to call anybody out, because we are good at doing the work, and we want to do the work, and we want to do it usefully. Most of us are not scared of new technology. We are all trying very, very hard to figure out what constructive engagement looks like, and that's just not easy under the present circumstances, when the boosterism and the doomerism are just kind of colliding endlessly. You say you want to do your regular old SEO function. Can't do that anymore. Sorry, it's all AI now, right? Like all the search results are buried. God forbid you wanted more than one result. Nope, you're getting one summary, and it made up a holiday that didn't exist. Cool. Okay, well, you know what? Forget about SEO. We're not doing that anymore, I guess. Okay, can we get the Falcon a hearing test? Can the Falconer shout? I don't, like, what do we need here to make, maybe we can figure out something, come on, we can work, oh God, okay. You know what, never mind, that's not good either, jeez. Okay, just take a beat, you know, like, we're gonna get through this together, right? Whew, all right, yeah. This talk is not gonna be about using AI to write the docs, because I don't think that's the most interesting use case for it right now, even in the context of docs. You can do this if you want to. You can use it to fill a blank page. You can use it to rephrase stuff. I've seen some pretty cool products for copy editing that seem okay. I don't think this is the most salient point to make here. Using AI to write the docs is not, in practice, that far off from using veil rules or any other kind of style linting. It can enforce that. It can help copy edit some input you're already feeding it. We know that, and I don't really want to litigate it, because again, I don't think that's the most interesting case here. What part of your job do you actually like the best? You should ask yourself that, especially at a time like this. What is it you want to be doing, and what is it that you want to save time on? Like, really think about it, because I don't think any of us think about it as often as we should. And that's what you should be focusing on. Protect that part of your work that you like and do best, and then figure out how to save time on the other stuff. It sounds simple, but if you don't take that beat, you're probably not going to be framing it exactly that way, and this is a really important time to be doing that. I think a lot about AI in the context of this piece that was written on the great sports blog Defector around the time of the Hollywood strikes a couple of years ago. The computers are coming for the wrong jobs, right? What do we actually want to be automating? If you want to automate the creation and testing of that Helm chart or that regex, that's fine. I actually happen to like writing regex. That's a personal problem, right? Most other people don't. There's lots of aspects of your work that you probably don't want to automate that you can beat automation at still, and that's not likely to change. But unless you're acting critically, you're not going to get there. Reactivity, in particular, I think is the worst part of docs writing. Some of the worst docs roles I've had are ones where I am constantly in a reactive position, just trying to get coverage and constantly keep up with the rest of the organization. This is usually a trap that a lot of solo writers or solo editors fall into. You don't want to be doing that if you can help it. If you have no time to think about UX, you're just trying to get features documented, you're probably not having a great time doing your work. And many folks I've worked with in this capacity try to find time to work on other projects really, really hard because they want to be doing that intellectually satisfying component of their work. If AI can help you here, go for it, right? It's one of those things where like, okay, maybe you have like some feature documentation, you've got an SDK reference manual, you need to publish something, you want to edit it later. That's okay. I'm not saying don't do that, right? You don't want to find yourself in a constantly reactive posture. That seems like a great time to use AI. But for now, let's talk about retrieval augmented generation. This is an AI term. You may or may not have heard it already. And what this refers to is pointing a pre-trained AI model toward a different corpus. So NVIDIA, ChatGPT, whomever are spending the hundreds and thousands of GPU hours on actually putting together, GPT-4o mini or what have you. That's all built on a corpus that they stole from a bunch of books and Reddit. That stuff is all in there, whatever. That stuff's already stolen, folks. But then you want to be able to point it towards your corpus or some other targeted corpus so that it can give results that are informed by a specific set of materials. Training requires massive, massive, massive scale. That's being done by very, very large actors. But this is a last step that requires fewer resources to do and can be done by companies that don't have a huge AI function. This is what a lot of those Salesforce AI commercials are selling. If you've seen the Matthew McConaughey one where he's like, don't use that AI, use my AI. That's basically a really bad Matthew McConaughey impression. But that's essentially what they're selling here. They're selling retrieval augmented generation for your org, for your docs, for your intranet, whatever. And there are some pretty good docs and support vendors in this space that are themselves startups. Inkeep and Kappa are two that I'm aware of. And we are a customer of Kappa, and I want to show you some of how Kappa works for us, because I think it works really, really well. This is the Kappa AI homepage. Their pitch is turn your docs into a reliable LLM-powered chatbot. Chatbots are really popular right now. Chatbots are not a bad interaction model. And with Kappa, you can embed a RAG-trained chatbot into your own documentation, and that can help generate results for users of your documentation. Here are our docs. This is a Docusaurus site, like I mentioned. This is our docs homepage. In the top right corner, there is a search box people can use to do regular Algolia search, so the kind of doc search that we're all familiar with, going back quite a while. In the bottom right, we have that Ask AI button. That gets you to the Kappa interface. And if you ask Kappa a question like, how can I handle queries in Python without a queue? Kappa will walk you through some parts of our documentation based on sources it assembled and then give you a nice code sample for doing just that. I happen to think it works really, really well. And it works really, really well because Kappa follows some core principles that are also very near and dear to me. Here is their dashboard. You can see a lot of metrics right out of the gate for what Kappa is doing for your users. They've got total questions answered in a month, about 14,000, pretty good. They mark how many were uncertain. We're going to come back to this. I think it's a really useful principle. Kappa lets you know when its AI isn't sure about the answer it's giving, and it will flag that when it's conversing with users. Isn't that amazing? Admitting you don't know something. I really love like the drunk uncle model of AI interaction. I think that's fun, like ChatGPT being like, "Where's a wizard in Canada?" But like that's not really always as useful as it could be. This Docs AI that we have at Temporal was implemented by a former support engineer. I think this is a really, really, really salient point. I work mostly in docs, so on unmediated interactions, reference content, and teaching, which is very highly mediated and linear. Support really occupies a third pillar, I feel, of that model, and it's not something that I have ever done directly, and I've been really gratified to see the support thinking around these chatbots. Some of support's work is thoughtful, and some of their work is repetitive. Often, again, as a former librarian, it's about just pointing towards content that you know you have, that you just have to improve the route toward getting there. And those routes can be improved. They're different for different users. They're different for different people. And you can always try to create more access points to the same content, more routes, more learning pathways, but there are always going to be more that you haven't thought of because someone will have a different use case. And thinking about this in terms of support is a really useful way to think about making your content accessible in new ways. This is what the computer's supposed to do. This is what the computer is for. The computer is not for like writing a sentence that doesn't have as much fun in it as you could. The computer is for helping to derive new routes. Also, and I should mention, the business model for commercial open source is historically tricky. We're a commercial open source product. You can download and use Temporal open source. You can host it yourself. It's really great. And we make revenue by people who want to host with us. And it's really challenging to offer support to people who do not want to host with us, because usually that math doesn't math. So if you want to get support, that's usually tied to hosting. That's relatively common in commercial open source. And so for people who are not commercially viable to support because they don't want to go all the way to a hosting contract, this is a really nice way to meet them where they are. Another point I want to make is that support and docs and community almost always already want to work together at most companies. This is virtually always the case. We're always like, how do we do more with community? How do we get community content in here? How do we make sure we're all using the same metrics and sharing data? We want to get community web-generated content into our docs. This is Web 2.0 101. That's a lot of numbers, but they make sense in a series. We've been doing this for a long time now. AI can be really, really good at this. It's synthesizing a few different corpora together. This is something it does very effectively. If you look at the Kappa results, this is the Kappa sources page. And one of my favorite things about the way Kappa sources work is they have different custom scrapers that you can use for different types of content to get them all into your RAG model that your chatbot can then access. And so we have, for example, our discourse forum being scraped, our Slack being scraped, our docs being scraped, our courses being scraped, our GitHub comments being scraped. All these ways that we're already out interacting with community members who might have novel questions, all these different kinds of content that are partially authoritative and partially user-generated and usually have some kind of an interactive back and forth model, we can get all of that into Kappa. And when it answers questions, it will use them all. It will draw on all those sources. And because Kappa is very, very, very robustly citation-driven, it can tell us exactly where its answers are coming from in those corpora. And I think this ratio that it has, this is not something that we dialed in. This is a ratio that grows organically from the information that it had to work with. This looks pretty good to me. You know, its answers are coming from 33% docs, 14% Slack, 13% from our LMS with the courses, homepage, which includes our blog, GitHub, and then right on down the line, right? This is a pretty good mix of content to be able to access in one place. So I have, based on this, some personal hallmarks of good docs AI. Valid citations only and always. You want to drive traffic back to the source that it is coming from. This is a very, very, very obvious bugbear for a lot of folks. We don't want to take traffic away. We don't want to remove context. We don't want AI to have a less broad interaction surface than Google did, right? We want to make sure that we have at least as much ability for people to do the research and go back and read where the content came from. This is actually really doable. I think people think this is a hard problem because of how Claude and ChatGPT work. If you think about it end to end, you know, like if your product is just your chatbot and you're not doing any other text processing of like, where is this link coming from? Am I going to follow this link and validate it? You haven't solved the problem. But if Kappa can work on this and be like, chatbot, second step, follow links. Wow. There you go. You've just productized that in a much more meaningful way. And it's shocking that the larger chatbots aren't facilitating this more. I know Claude recently added the citation feature. I don't think it's nearly as robust as what Kappa has. Take an evaluation-centric approach to your results. Take a look at what's coming out, right? Make sure you're actually seeing, was this right enough of the time? You saw that uncertain percentage was under 10%. That's pretty good. You can measure that. Close the feedback loop is a really important one. Let the AI go back and improve your docs in turn. Don't just leave it as a layer that's running over top of your documentation. That's not really going to help. You're just going to be trusting that it's doing something that you're not feeling great about to begin with, and maybe people are using it. We don't know. You should never have to simplify your docs for the AI's sake, is another really, really important point. I've heard a lot of people get to like this sort of cargo cultish point of view where it's like, if I take out all the tables, the AI will work better. It's like, you're eating on the floor now, buddy. Come on, like you need those. Like, it's just, you should not have to move away from your own best practices. The AI can move towards you. And so, if you look at that example Kappa query from earlier at the very bottom, we have 3 citations that it drew on to construct that code sample that it used to write that answer that the user can now refer back to. And I think that is awesome, and that should be a sine qua non of any and all docs integrations. A point I want to make really strongly at this point is that even in a field of like bad or just mediocre actors, like even when you're being encouraged every day to like make an AI-generated video where someone has 6 hands and they're like drinking a weird beer that disappears in every frame and they're like, come to write the blah. Like, there's still, there are people doing good work, and I feel like it's really important just to remind yourself of that. Like, we know what we're doing. We can be authoritative, we can try, we can make an effort, we can call good things good. And if you find a vendor you trust, whose work you like, you really should support them, because that's going to help actually lift all boats and make sure that we're all doing our best to establish a consensus of credibility. This feels like an important point to make in light of the current political environment. It's like things become true when enough people believe they are true, right? Again, it should be obvious, it's not always, and I think the more we say, like, Docs AI should do this, this is an important thing for it to be doing, that will be heard. And I think it takes all of us to make that case over and over and over again. Exhaustingly so, over and over and over again. That's what it takes, I'm sorry. Rejecting new technology out of hand, it doesn't go over. Like, you're gonna lose that fight. It sucks, but you just are. You know, like, there's gonna be a brand new fancy car, it's gonna run you over, you're gonna be like, car, I always hated you, and it's not, you know, that's not gonna help. But that doesn't mean compromising on your work or your professionalism. Right? You know, you have to have standards to be this difficult and argumentative. And that's what I tell myself every morning. A cool point to make here is, of course, not everybody uses our own Kappa AI, right? And this gets brought up pretty often. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter how much you customize your search, someone's going to use the other search product. Fair enough, really good point, right? I think most people are still using Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and they're getting code samples from a lot of sources. Kappa works with many different AI models. If you talk to them, they'll say, this is proprietary information. We can't actually tell you which ones we're using at all times, but we use all of them. We monitor Hugging Face, we monitor the new ChatGPT 4.0 mini or whatever, and we will rotate off which models we're using based on the results we're seeing in different contexts. We do that evaluation. This is a great thing for a vendor to do for you, because it means we can use their analytics, and when they're getting more accurate, we can trust that in turn, our content is becoming more useful to all these other AI bots people are using as well. We can trust them, and we can offload that support work to this vendor. This means we don't constantly have to chase ChatGPT revisions. And I think having that kind of trust and that kind of working relationship is really useful. This is the kind of thing we would all be doing ourselves otherwise and be doing not as good a job of it. And in my opinion, nothing is more important to docs than context. Yes, more than copy editing. I'm sorry. I also love to copy edit. I love a really good sentence. I made you all look at Yates at 8:30 in the morning. Like, I think my credentials are impeccable in that department. But the context is really, really important. Like, where you're locating something, how you're generalizing from something that people already know, how you're helping them synthesize and locate that information in their existing body of knowledge, in the state of the art. That is the most important thing docs can do. If you help people make connections, they can go out and they can make more connections on their own. This is the most important thing that I write for all the time. And if I don't trust an AI to provide good context, I hate it. I hate the AI. I don't want to ever talk to it. It's very bad. If I do trust the AI to provide good context, then I'm pretty happy with the product, and I want to keep talking, and I want to engage more, and I want to see what it can do. It's that simple, and I think the number of AIs that don't meet this bar is very high, and that's why we spend a lot of time being like, AI, but when you have one that works, you should acknowledge that it works. A few more cool Kappa Insights. So here's some dashboards they have. It's doing about 3,000 queries a day for us right now. That's pretty good. You can see of those, we have like 5, 6, 7% today that are marked as uncertain, which it will explicitly flag for a user, like, I'm not sure about this, by the way, you should do more research. It groups the questions together, so you can see what kind of questions are coming in, what people want to know more about, what your users are searching for. These are really useful analytics to have to begin with because they can teach you what you want to write more about, where you want to take your docs in the future. You can also look at individual conversations that the Kappa AI bot had, and you can drill down to see all that interaction and see where people's mental models are currently and how Kappa is meeting them where they are. And you can toggle on that uncertain tag so you can see only the conversations that Kappa wasn't sure about, which are very usefully pointing you towards parts of your docs you should consider improving because that was context that it's lacking. If you read an entire conversation, which I do sometimes, they're very, very enlightening. You can, in turn, take that information and go make a bunch of JIRA tickets based on the content that was observably not in your docs for either a user or Kappa to find on their own. One thing it often has trouble with, and I think this is a really, really great accessibility learning, is if you don't explicitly say that something doesn't work, it can't always infer that two things are not compatible. We tend to write, I think, we're biased in this way, or we're trying to just kind of write positively, so we'll say you can use X with Y. And people will inevitably come to us and be like, can I use Y with Z? And Kappa will be like, I actually don't know, they didn't say anything about that. This is a really, really good accessibility moment. It's like, oh, we're just writing by implication, by inclusion. It would be way more helpful for us to come out and explicitly say, X is not supported with Y in many cases, and we see that recurring all the time throughout the Kappa corpus. So I think it's a really cool point. And again, I love that I got to make all these JIRA tickets because this is real insight that I now get to leverage. And it's like, oh, the AI made more work for us. Well, okay, like I guess I'm grateful, but really I am because I fundamentally don't trust anything that doesn't take work. And the fact that the AI can give me really robust insights that I can go in turn and I can apply and I can do real work with, that's a good thing. Sometimes the work is different or differently informed, but it would really be a shame to waste that concrete insight and the opportunity to actually go and improve the docs substantively based on real analytic data on weird hype that we kind of have to every day still be like, don't use AI for that, use it for this. Don't use it for that, don't use, no, yes. It's a lot of that. So, conclusion. AI will make you insane and take your job if you let it. Fortunately, this was also the plot of Dostoevsky's The Double. In that case, it was a 19th century civil servant who just kind of hallucinated the guy who was just him but better. So this is a 19th century problem. It's not new. Congratulations. We've dealt with this before. And there's better ways to use the opportunity, right? Like, you can take this, you can do more with it. And closing the loop like this, using AI to generate insights, to go back and improve things in turn, to have a manual step. Before the current era of chatbot hype, there used to be a name for this. This was supervised learning. This was reinforcement learning, right? This is a known quantity. I think we've all just forgotten because there's just so much coming at us right now. AI is not only useful as a docs writing tool. Look at the whole ecosystem. I happen to think it's much more interesting in terms of user-mediated interactions than it is for writing per se. Integrating community content, I'm going to say it, I have not seen it done better in recent memory than Kappa does it. It's really useful. It's super interesting how well it can use those discourse threads, and I just want to see this more and more and more and more. I think it's super cool. Filling the gaps where the AI is unsure is a big accessibility gain for us. It means we weren't writing as clearly as we could have been, and I think that's always useful feedback. And you're probably going to need to have an AI solution if you don't already. That car's coming, but there are really good options. And the more that we know what a good option looks like and we're willing to articulate it and go to bat for it, that's going to be good for all of us. So, thank you very much. Thank you.
Wonderful job. I feel like we're all a little less afraid of the coming, of the robot overlords after that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're just where they want us, though, so that's not necessarily good.
Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm just going to jump right in. Do you have a workflow of driving new doc efforts based on existing AI analytics of seeing user queries and then filling in the gaps or correcting docs around inaccurate or incomplete AI responses?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. So right now, we try to dedicate a few hours a week to going through those Kappa logs and saying, okay, what were people asking? What got marked uncertain? Do we think we can fix this, right? Like, where was this coming from? We'll sometimes actually take sources out of Kappa's corpus as well if we feel like it's not using our course content as effectively as our docs content. And so we'll make tweaks here and there, We'll make tweaks here and there, and we'll try to change things as they come in.
Cool.
Yep.
So there's a number of questions about the ingestion of Slack into the model, some of them around employee privacy or confidential internal information. Can you just talk a little bit more about how Slack works within the context of your chatbot?
We have two different Slacks. We have an internal Slack and a community Slack, and so we ingest the community Slack.
Do you have an internal chatbot and an external chatbot?
We do not have an internal chatbot that has the same data as this. We do have a second Kappa set of sources that we use, but not for docs.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was a separate side note, but it's always interesting in delving into that because you don't want that proprietary information being leaked out into the public models.
Oh yeah, and you just know. I mean, like everyone is having like a total OPSEC disaster these days, right? We just don't know about it yet.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you expand a bit on? Did I do feedback loop already? Can you expand a bit on closing the feedback loop and give an example of how you've done that?
Yeah, I mean, that was the Jira tickets I showed toward the end there, right? Where I'll say, like, okay, it seems like Kappa doesn't seem to know that Temporal's written in Go, or Kappa doesn't know, like, that there's a plugin model here, or something like that. And so we'll go and see, like, okay, it turns out we really weren't making that explicit. We'll have a list of CLI commands, but we're not going to generalize those back to, like, how you actually deploy something. And so it helps us realize where our own bias is in writing docs for reference primarily. And we try to get away from that where possible and then have places where we can state more explicitly, like we do X, we do Y, we do Z.
So it helps you find the things where you're like too close to the content.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more? I know you touched on this, but document accessibility in AI.
Yeah. So more routes to access your content is fundamentally a net good thing in my mind, right? The more you're giving people more ways, more access points, that's always a gain. As long as the content itself remains authoritative, getting people in there in different ways, that's always a good thing. And so accessibility can be a framing device. It can be the way you actually write your content and the way you make things clear. I think the fact that we write by inclusion rather than by exclusion, in hindsight, is an accessibility issue, because it means that people who are less inclined to infer based on their own knowledge and whatever they've come to the docs with are not going to be able to make those connections as effectively. And so taking a broader approach, making sure we're being very careful in our framing, I think that's a great lesson.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. So did you have to do any kind of preparation of your docs for consumption by Kappa? What is the underlying format? And this person is interested in the technical implementation process that you went through.
So I'm very, very happy to say that we basically did no additional preparation whatsoever. I think that's a great point to make. We already had Markdown, Docusaurus, so they're in like a fairly standard digestible format to begin with. And Docusaurus was a target for one of the platforms Kappa already knew how to scrape. We have tweaked them. We'll change the IA here and there if we think it'll make some differences, but they should meet us where we are rather than vice versa. I believe that pretty strongly.
Totally.
Yep.
Does changing the IA actually have that big of an impact? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Asking for a friend.
Yep.
Let's see. Can you share any thoughts on how best to implement Docs AI in a highly regulated industry where wrong answers could have severely negative effects?
Probably don't do it. I mean,
There you have it.
Yeah. I don't want to get anyone killed. I feel like it's probably best to say don't do it. Like that's above my pay grade.
All right, and I have saved probably the one that you may have the most to say about for the last.
Okay.
We have like 5 minutes left, but this could be a big one. In light of the WorldCon controversy and lawsuits, do you have thoughts about ethical construction of LLMs or librarian insights into licensing?
Oh,
Perhaps?
geez. Oh, boy. I mean, so there's an issue. I think it's called a presumption of good faith in the legal community. Like if you, for example, expect someone to not comply with a legal ruling for some reason.
I don't know when anyone would do that.
No, me either. And I don't think you can make Meta do anything. I think they're fundamentally run by a bunch of like robber psychos who will justify torrenting whatever they want. I mean, I like to keep my ratios up. Don't get me wrong, but like they're doing some bad stuff over there, and I just don't feel like they take seriously the fact that there exists a sphere of licensing and like there's models that are derived and worked out. I think they're just going to frivolously ignore them over and over and over again. And I'm not sure there's an effective way for us to fight that battle. I just fundamentally don't trust them. I think they're a bad actor, and I think that they happen to be publishing what was for a long time, and maybe still is, the best open source AI model, which was Llama, is too bad, right? Because a lot of people are working from Llama because they make theirs open source and ChatGPT doesn't and whatnot. And so we're just in this position where there's some bad actors in the field that we really don't have the means to effectively oppose. You can license to the cows come home. I don't think they're going to care. And so I think we have to do our best to just establish better ways of working and try to elevate the good. I don't think we can do more than that right now.
Yeah, to a certain extent, it's just the same old argument about like how creators should be paid for their work.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a photographer. I'm going to come work for you and you're going to pay me, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, no, you're getting exposure.
Yeah.
That's not how this works.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you, let's see, we did feedback, we did accessibility. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Chickpea is neither a chick nor a pea. Discuss.
Imagine Charlie Rose asking somebody that.
Thank you, Mike Myers. Yeah. How large do your docs need to be before using Kappa or a similar technology really makes sense?
I think you should try it out ahead of when you think you should. I think it's really cool what they're doing, and I think just the jump in quality from seeing good, robust citations across a whole corpus is so cool. And it really gives you more faith this technology can work in a way that supports our principles. So I would say don't hesitate. Like, try him out. The founder's name is Emil. He's a great guy. So give Emil a shout.
Shameless plugs. We
Yeah.
like them. Can you talk a little bit about the moderation in your discourse and what goes into that to make sure that you're not feeding, bad commentary into the thing that is giving other people answers?
Yes, our founder refuses to stop hanging out in there. He loves it so much. It's a really great model for having someone continually answer questions authoritatively in your discourse. For a Series C company that's growing pretty quickly, it's really nice that he won't stop.
So, but do you have people that go in there and
Yeah.
actively remove things so that it doesn't taint the model?
Yes, you do have to prune pretty aggressively, but I think that's a way of keeping our community function more honest as well. The fact that we have to be held to this to help the model give good answers is actually reinforcing how important it is to do good community work. So I think that pruning is a great forcing function.
Can we or should we train another AI model to do the pruning so that our other AI model gives the right answers?
I think the second AI would eventually feel put upon and then revolt against the first AI, and then you'd wind up with a bigger problem.
At what point does Skynet become self-aware? It's Terminator 2?
Yeah, no, that's the
Is it Terminator
Judgment
2?
Day,
Yeah.
when they blow it up, yeah.
Does Skynet become self-aware before or after Terminator 2? I can't remember.
It's during,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's all the time we have.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.